All right, we're recording. Dillon, how
Perfect.
are you, man?
Doing very, very well. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Thank you for being here as I kind of relaunch this project of mine. I really appreciate you taking the time. We've known each other for quite a long time, actually, when I think back.
That's right.
You were featured in my band's very first music video
Oh
about
my
10
God.
years ago.
No way.
So, yeah, quite the history. And when I found out that you were doing this, health and nutrition thing on Instagram, on TikTok, really dedicating yourself to this field of health and fitness, I
Yes,
was
sir.
super impressed and I had to talk to you. So thanks for taking the time. And why don't you start by introducing yourself and talking a little bit about your qualifications and what you've been doing?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much. That was so nice of you. Like best compliment I got all week, maybe even month. But my name is Dillon Martino, or Dillon Joseph Martino for asking for the full name. I'm a naturopathic health practitioner, a board certified holistic nutritionist, a biosignature practitioner, a yoga instructor, a combat sports ace, as it were, basically my field of expertise. And I'm also a strength conditioning, hypertrophy, and fat loss fitness coach.
That's quite the list.
Quite the
That's,
credentials indeed.
I mean,
So,
one of the things that jumps out at me is the naturopath
right.
thing. I guess it's a bit of a lack of understanding on my part, but it's kind of fascinating because I've always been a little bit fascinated with natural health and natural remedies, that type of thing. So can you get into that a little bit? Like, what's your specialty in that field?
So first and foremost, we have to understand what the differences are between, well, naturopathy, because it's a very loose term depending on where in the world you are. So generally speaking, a naturopath is just another form of a medical off branch. So let's say for your doctor, right? There are people like pediatricians who specialize mainly with dealing with children, right? There are neurologists, which is another branch of doctor, cardiologists, surgeons, general doctor, and there are also naturopathic doctors that basically just deal mainly with nutrition and general lifestyle changes. However, here in the province of Quebec in Canada, though the term naturopath is not yet regulated, or not regulated as of this current moment. Who knows if it's ever going to be regulated, which basically means I am not eligible to call myself a doctor nor practice certain medical medical, well, off branches. What I mean by that is I can't take blood tests, I can't check for people's food intolerances, nothing that would interfere with a medical doctor's profession. But instead I'm more of a coach that helps my clients promote a healthy way of life, encourage them and educate them in nutrition, help them customize their nutrition plan to better suit their goals, be it fat loss, sluggish, whatever they're going through. So essentially, if I had to summarize everything, I'm more of an educator. Think of me as a food teacher, basically.
Cool. I was going to say nutrition must be a gigantic part of that. And,
Huge.
I've been very interested in food as a tool for healing. And there's a wealth of information out there, but it's also extremely confusing. Nutrition is one of the most convoluted fields that I've come across, in my entire life. People
Right.
with varying kind of ways of thinking about it. And you hear a lot about these trendy things like, the keto diet and the carnivore diet, and, people who are for being vegan and people who are for eating meat and things like that. What's your stance on all of these kind of hot button topics within the nutrition field and people that take very polarized positions?
Right. Wow, that's a loaded question if I've ever heard one. So, yeah, okay. Well, this is my honest. Okay, I'll split my answer into like two components. Honestly, I'm not a proprietor or an advocate of dieting. Anytime you put diet behind a word or a fad or whatever, it's automatically a big red flag for me. So the vegan diet, carnivore diet, paleo diet. I feel like anytime people use the word diet, it's really of a short-term gains. I'm gonna go on paleo because I'm overweight and I want to lose the weight. And as soon as they see a little bit of results, or even in the cases where they don't see results, all of a sudden they give up. Oh, I tried this diet, it didn't work. Well, that's because you're thinking too short term. Don't think of diets, think of it truly as a lifestyle. When I eat, I don't eat because I'm trying to attain a certain goal, right? Unless it's muscle mass wise, where I'm really trying to, get in a caloric surplus so I can maximize muscle gains. Fine, that's a little different because I'm eating pertaining to my sport. But if you are just eating for the sake of getting healthy, don't obsess over diets. Don't worry about eating certain, healthy foods. Just make sure to eat clean foods. Obviously, we don't go to McDonald's or whatever, and you don't live off of McDonald's. That's not the way to do it. Eat cleaner, whole, organic foods is what I preach to my clients. And just by doing that, you're going to see miraculous changes, big time. Now, on the other hand, it's going to sound a little contradictory to what I was saying before. There is a time and place for certain diets, right? So again, let me preface this by saying I'm not a doctor. I'm not advertising anybody try this. Speak with your practitioner. Maybe when I eventually become a doctor, then I'll have more leeway to talk about that stuff. But there is a place for carnivore diet, for example. If we look at someone who I look up to very, very much so, Dr. Jordan Peterson, as well as his daughter, Michaela Peterson, they had some sort of crazy autoimmune disorder where they couldn't eat anything. And just by going to an extreme version of the carnivore diet, what Michaela Peterson likes to call the lion diet, where it's strictly meat, salt, and water, nothing more. Well, just by doing that, both her father and herself have cured themselves of many autoimmune disorders. I've known many people to go on a vegan diet, for example. I'm not the biggest fan of the vegan diet, and we could get into that a little more later. But I know many people who've gone on vegan diets and they've lost crazy amount of weight, gained so much energy, and have been more or less thriving. Again, is that the diet per se? It's hard to say because we have to analyze what have they've been doing before. If you go from nothing but processed sugars and pastries and cookies and all that stuff to a vegan diet, yeah, I would hope that you get healthy in the long run. But this could be applied to anything, a Mediterranean diet, carnivore, whatever. So if you're eating like garbage, if you adopt any one of these diets, I'm sure it can help. In more, I guess, precision for my clients, let's say someone is dealing with serious autoimmune diseases, then yeah, I would preach a little bit more of specific diets per se pertaining to them and their lifestyle, because by going through this restrictive diet, well, we're going to eliminate all the toxic foods that you've been eating, and now we're opening you up to just eat whole, organic, and cleaner ingredients and healthier foods.
I think that's been a key thing for myself. I'm always trying to improve my, my food intake, and I'm by no means perfect, but starting to pay more attention to the ingredients within things, trying to eat less processed and packaged stuff, buy organic when I can, and in terms of meat, same goes, like anything that's grass fed or organic, eggs, meat, whatever. Try to lean more on that side, and it gets expensive, so you do what you can within your means, but just being more conscious of it, I think, is one of the biggest things, because when you're really thinking about it, you tend to make better choices. And even if you can't be perfect all the time, like we were saying, even little changes can compound over time and really make a big difference.
Big time. Wow, there's actually a lot I can say in regards to that, so I'll try to break it down in as many points as I can. You're right. Small changes do go a long way. I've seen some of the best results from my clients for example, changing one thing a week or even one thing a month. So let's say I get a client who comes to see me and they're completely metabolically unbalanced. Their whole, digestive system, their gut, their body, everything about them, their weight is out of whack. Well, rather than make 100 changes in a week, I'll go through all the changes that I would like to see in them over the course of however many months. But if, for example, they cut just white refined bread for the month, but they're still eating, their processed cookies and, still drinking soft drinks or sodas and still, alcohol, that in my book, that's a win, because now you made one lifestyle change. And after let's say one lifestyle change a month, well, after 1 month, it's only one small change. It's no big deal. After an entire year, well, that's 12 massive changes. That's going to go a long way. You do that for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Hey, man, that adds up very, very quickly. And that's another problem too. So many people are in such a rush to get healthy. I understand you don't want to, be overweight. You don't want to, your brain fog. You don't want to feel like garbage the whole time, but it took you, it, you know, hypothetically speaking, it takes someone 5, 10, 15, 20 years to get very unhealthy. Well, it has to take you the same amount of time, or roughly, to get healthy too. You can't spend 30 years of your life eating with processed garbage and then within 2 weeks, oh, now I'm healthy all of a sudden. No, you have to build your good habits.
That's an excellent point, and probably one of the main reasons why so many diets fail, because it feels like an all or nothing thing that you need to embrace 100% right from the beginning. And if you're not used to that, then of course it's going to be extremely difficult, and willpower can only take you so far.
That's right. It's
That's
interesting too because oh, sorry.
no, go
But
ahead.
it's interesting too because there's a lot of neurological processes that we could get into as well. A lot of people think, well, I'm just eating all this unhealthy food that I don't like or doesn't taste as good as, let's say, a pizza or a sub, or you know, you go to any fast food joint. But the truth is, it actually does taste better, and you'll enjoy thriving off of the healthy foods once you get used to it. The problem is a lot of these processed foods, like the big food and all these food companies are not dumb. They know what they're putting in our foods. And yeah, it might taste good in the short term, but what it's doing to your neurons in the long run is getting you uh, addicted, in lack of a better term, to these foods. So when you try to make the switch, I'm going to eat vegan, I'm going to eat carnivore, I'm going to eat healthier foods, well, all of a sudden everything tastes, not to sound crude, but everything tastes like ass, because you're so used to all like that good, quote unquote, good tasting processed foods, that when you try to go to whole organic foods, well, of course it doesn't taste as good. But if you were to deprive yourself off of these unhealthy foods for even as short as 30 days, just 1 month, you'll notice a massive difference, not only in your body composition, but as well as in your brain fog and as well as in your palate. If you try to go back to these sugar-filled foods, you're going to realize, wow, it's not as good as I thought it was. I can't drink a can of Pepsi without, you know, I cringe at just the taste, because you've been so deprived from drinking that drink they used to drink all the time.
I can relate 100%. It's been years since I've drank soft drinks. And the thought of it, I'm not even tempted at all. Somebody can put a can of Coke in front of me and there's no temptation, because, you know, it's too sweet. You know what I mean? Like, it's not appealing anymore from a
100.
taste standpoint. And I know that I'll feel gross after I have it. So it's just a lose on every level. There's no reason to put that into your body. And yeah, I'm sure that applies across the board whenever you make long-term changes.
That's right. It's funny you bring that up too, because in a couple months, well, a few months, it'll be my 7th or maybe 8th year that I haven't touched anything on the McDonald's menu. And whenever I tell people that, like, whoa, wait, really, it's been that long? Yeah.
Congratulations. That's great.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Heading for that double digits. But yeah, so many people are so shocked because it's become such a staple in their diet. Like at least once a week or once every 2 weeks, I have to get the McDonald's fries. You know what? Unless I'm very, very hungry because I've been on the road all day and I'm passing by McDonald's and I get a whiff of that smell, I actually won't be craving McDonald's. And even when I get that whiff of, let's say, fries or the burger as I'm passing a McDonald's, you stay strong, you just drive past it. And as soon as I get home and I cook my own meal and I eat it, the cravings immediately go away. I'm not interested in having the foods. It's really just in that moment because your senses are, you know, going crazy. That smell, oh my God, it reminds you of the taste of the foods that you used to eat. So yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. Congratulations to you on the no soft drinks.
Thanks. Yeah. We spoke about, you just mentioned cravings, which kind of triggered something for me, because we were speaking about what we eat, but I'm also interested in eating habits in terms of like when not to eat or practicing fasting. I've
Very, very.
experimented with all kinds of different things, and, you know, intermittent fasting is a huge thing. Are you a proponent of that, or what do you think about fasting?
Very interesting question. Before I get into that, let me just address something that you mentioned before, just a little bullet point, but I might lead into it later or get, you know, more details. You mentioned how expensive healthy eating could be. The funny thing is, it really, really isn't. At face value, it is. But at the same time, when people, if anybody listening were to take their food budget and really break down how much they're spending on all the stuff you shouldn't be getting, say, you know, cans of Pepsi or cereals or, you know, what refined bread, any processed junk, you'd be surprised how much people actually spend on that food. Let's just say around an even round number, $100 a month. or every 2 weeks, right? Just on processed foods. Well, if you were to spend that money elsewhere, say on grass-fed steaks or organic butter or a lot of vegetables, all of a sudden, not only are you eating healthy, but all of a sudden this healthy food isn't as expensive as you originally thought. Where I'm
Excellent
coming
point.
from?
And just cutting alcohol out of your diet, that's an enormous expense right there.
Huge, big time. Yeah, oh my God. When my clients tell me how much they spend just on wine, it's just a glass of wine on the weekend, but how many bottles are you buying? All of a sudden, they're in the triple digits just with their alcohol.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
So this is another thing. And I know that I brought up fasting, but I want to go a little bit deeper on this.
Sure.
Do you have a zero alcohol policy? Is that what you live by?
That's a very interesting question. Keep in mind, I'm also very extreme too. I'm the only person in my life that's ever that I know personally anyway, that as soon as I wanted to get healthy for the very first time, my coach and naturopath that I was seeing, gave me a meal plan. These are the foods you should be eating. This is what you shouldn't be eating. And that same afternoon, I made the 100% switch. So to respond to your question, I have a 99% no alcohol policy. There's only 2 days of the year that I'll generally drink, and they're usually holidays, say Easter and Christmas or Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like I'll make sure to choose 1 or 2 days in the year, around the family, just to have a little bit of fun. But I wouldn't just have a glass of wine. Oh, it's Friday or it's Saturday, let's have a glass. That's not me.
Okay. I
Yeah.
I live by an everything in moderation, including moderation philosophy. So that's my thing, but to each their own. And
Of
I know
course.
that I've heard repeatedly that there's virtually no benefits to consuming alcohol whatsoever for your
I
body.
would
So
actually disagree to that, believe it or not.
really,
Again, it depends what we're talking about. If you're talking about getting, let's say, a shot of Jack Daniels inside a glass, and then you douse that with, I don't know, lemonade, for example. No, okay, that's like super sugary, super non-beneficial. But there have been many studies showing that even one glass of red wine, it provides you with a significant amount of antioxidants, which for anyone who doesn't know, antioxidants are compounds found in your body that actually combat illness and disease, namely cancer. So having a glass of wine every now and then actually isn't the worst thing. I don't think people should opt for it, but I know there are many people out there who enjoy their glass of wine a week, after long days, weeks of work. So if you want to have a glass of wine, maybe even two a week, it really isn't that bad. I think it can be very beneficial.
well, the other thing that I was going to mention too is just these kind of stress relief aspects to sitting down with a glass of wine after the end of a busy week. That, from a mental standpoint, can probably do some good as well. Not that I advocate using that as a crutch either, because I think that there are other tools that can be used to
Absolutely.
relax and de-stress. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that can be used. And I just wanted to go back to something that you said before about
Sure.
when you were getting into your fitness journey and how you made that switch instantly. It reminded me of some other people I know, because I have a friend or a couple friends who've lost significant amounts of weight, and it seemed like there was just a day, one point in time, where a switch turned in their head and they decided, this is it, I'm getting healthy now. And they made that decision. And I feel like a lot of people have that moment in their life. What was it like for you when you made that decision?
There's a I'll try to be humble with this. I don't like to talk about myself too much, but there's no way to properly explain this without kind of bragging, I guess. But I've always been that type of person, whether you know that I'm a musician as well. So when
Mhm.
it came to music, when it came to martial arts, for example, I'm a black belt in Olympic Taekwondo. When it came to anything that I've done in my life, I've always gone 100% with it. Half the time, it wasn't necessarily my doing. It was mostly, let's say, my mentors pushing me to, to work harder, or my parents forcing me to make my, my competitions or what have you. But I'm kind of grateful for that, because it really developed me into the type of person where I do everything 100%. I'm not necessarily the whole jack of all trades, master of none. I'm not a master of one particular thing. I do feel like I'm a jack of multiple things, but I've spent enough time when it comes to fitness, health, music, language learning, martial arts, where I do feel proficient in my skills, at least enough to keep me satisfied. So to answer your question, going 100%, full pin into my nutrition, workout programs, dieting. It wasn't necessarily hard for me because I was just ready to do it. I feel like once you have, like you said, that light switch or that awakening moment, despite what it is, you're going to go full, full pin with it.
Yeah, I think that's super important. There's so many people who start trying to embark on these things, these lifestyle changes for the wrong reasons. And then, ultimately it doesn't work out. You need to really be invested for the right reason. And it needs to be something deep within you that's inspiring you to do it. Otherwise, how can you stick with something like that? Something, such a profound change in your life.
Absolutely. A big thing as well is people will develop their reason in the long run, right? Like I can't, with a straight face look you in the eyes and say, yeah, I did everything for the right reasons right away. Dieting, yes, I did want to become healthy, but when it came to fitness training, I just wanted to get, as jacked as I can and as muscular and vascular, look as impressive as I could. And even though that's still my primary goal, I do want to get, as masculine looking, and lack of a better term. I don't mainly work out in the gym for that. I work out because I want to be as anabolically healthy. I want to be able to lift heavy things, not necessarily weights, but even grocery bags without getting winded, climbing up, towers and towers and flights of stairs without getting winded. I want to be able to do superhuman things as a mortal being, in lack of a
Right.
better.
Well, that's a great motivation. I think it's something that a lot of people strive for, and it makes a lot of sense, because why wouldn't you want to be, physically capable of doing things?
Right.
So we had spoken about fasting and then started jumping around, but to get back to the fasting thing, um, a lot of pro athletes and fitness people talk about the benefits of like time restricted eating, fasting, and stuff like that. So just to go back to that point, is it something that you do?
Again, interesting question. It depends the time of the year. I recently started adopting intermittent fasting again. I wasn't doing that in the winter months because for any gym goer out there, you'll know that there's different seasons, bulking season, cutting season,
Right.
as it were. But in the general sense, for even someone who's not trying to train to get super lean and athletic looking, intermittent fasting, in my opinion, is one of the most crucial, vital, and important tools that we have. Again, this is going to get very controversial, and depending on who hears this might have a difference of opinion, but I do feel like nearly every metabolic deficiency or illness that people can and may develop over time can be cured or healed or even reversed by intermittent fasting. I think it's incredibly powerful.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of David Sinclair. He's longevity expert, written several books, and a huge proponent of fasting, and even more extended fasting, I believe. Um, for myself, I actually did a 72-hour fast with a friend of mine a few
Wow.
months back, and that was challenging, but it
Holy
was
smokes.
kind of a cool experience, because it kind of introduces you to the idea that your hunger is more or less an illusion, especially when you're talking about a 24-hour day where, you get hungry 3 or 4 times a day. You're going for snacks. Oh, is it lunchtime yet? This and that. But all of that just goes out the window when you tell yourself, I'm not eating for 3 days, and then the hunger comes and goes. It comes in waves and then it leaves. And by the end of it, I didn't even feel like eating. The 72 hours was up, and then you have to ease yourself back in because your body's not used to it anymore. It was
Big.
such a weird experience and kind of cool. And I didn't really suffer any negative effects from it. It was kind of the opposite. It was actually a very mind expanding in a certain way experience, because it kind of felt surreal. It's like it's been 2 days and I haven't eaten anything, and I've never done this before, but I don't feel terrible. I feel pretty good, actually. So it was very weird, and something that I'm really happy I did. It changed my thought patterns about food a little bit.
Absolutely. Wow. Honestly, kudos to you because I've never done a 72 hours. I've always been interested in trying that out. But yeah, you need like a lot of courage, a lot of strength, a lot of mental fortitude to do that. The longest I've ever done was a 24-hour fast.
Fortunately, I have a good friend who's very motivating, and it helps doing it with somebody else, because then you check in with each
Definitely.
other. You see if the other one is still sticking with it or not.
All right.
And to be honest with you, I went into it with very low expectations, not really sure if I would make it the whole way. I told myself if I'm feeling really sick or if I'm like gonna pass out or something, like I'm
Yeah.
grabbing a banana or whatever, But it actually went pretty well, easier than I anticipated. Just, a couple rough patches, but nothing unmanageable. And doing it with my friend made it all the easier. And so we were able to share the experience together. We kind of like talked about it afterwards, and it ended up being really cool.
Amazing. At which point during your 72-hour fast, which roughly translates to 3 days, at which point was the hardest for you in terms of fasting?
The third day was the
Mm,
hardest for me.
okay.
So I started it on a Thursday night. So I had my dinner on the Thursday night. I went the full day Friday, the full day Saturday, and then Sunday morning when I woke up, I wasn't feeling 100%. So I was kind
Right.
of a little bit sluggish, not feeling all that great. But I made it through the afternoon, and Sunday evening, I had a small meal and ate a little bit throughout the evening. And then it took me a couple days to get back to my regular appetite and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For the average person listening, don't do what Rob did. Don't try a 72-hour fast. That's super intense. It's crazy that you got through it. Good for you. But for the average person, what I would recommend is, I mean, there are different tiers to fasting. We could get into it if you'd like, but yeah, I do recommend that everyone, as a general rule, fasts for a minimum of 12 hours. And the reason, like, if I had to break down the math behind it, it's because people generally shouldn't be eating a minimum of 3 hours before going to bed. So if you know that you're going to bed, let's say at 11 p.m., and make sure to not consume anything calorie dense 3 hours before, just so your digestive system, starts to relax. Then presumably you get your 8 hours of sleep, right? Everyone sleeps different, but let's just assume 8 hours. Well, that adds to your fast as well. And then 1 hour upon waking up, because no one should wake up and then immediately go for food.
Right.
The big lie that we were ever told by big food, especially big food and big pharma, is breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You got to eat as soon as you wake up. Well, why? And another lie, you have to get your 3 meals a day. Well, again, why? Why? What's the reasoning behind it? And when you start to break that down and start to really critically think about it, and just like you did, start trying, different fasting periods or different eating regimens, even if you just reduce to 2 meals a day, people start noticing incredible benefits, mainly with their cognitive functions, just their brain fog and the way they think. And, they're not getting as irritable throughout the day or getting that 2 to 3 p.m. crash, just fatigue sets in. People start to lose that almost instantaneously just by changing up their food intake a little bit, not eating first thing in the morning.
100%. And two things, but just to go back, I'm also not suggesting that anybody should do a 72-hour fast. I'm just
Right.
putting that out there. I worked my way up to it. I
Yeah.
did like a program. This guy Dave Asprey had a training course on
Bulletproof.
fasting that was a couple weeks long. So like I followed that, and I had also been doing 12 to 16-hour fasting pretty regularly for the past couple of years. So this was more or less an extreme idea, a challenge, if you will, that my friend proposed to me. And I said, yes, let's go for it. But I'm
Right.
definitely not suggesting that anybody go into it just cold without preparing in advance to some degree. But then also to follow up on what you just said before, the other thing that fasting does for me is it kind of changes my appreciation for food too. Depriving
Mm,
yourself when that initial craving hits, it kind of makes the point where you say, okay, I'm going to have this meal that much more satisfying, and you appreciate it more.
definitely, definitely. A big thing that I do, again, I don't follow any specific diet. If I did have to choose one though, it would be a little more leaning towards the carnivore style, more ancestral, sort of speaking. So people like Liver King is like the main one. I feel like everybody has heard of him, just
I
how
recently started following him.
yeah, I love this guy to death. I think he's amazing. I
He's
also think what
awesome.
he's doing is a little extreme. I don't suggest that for the average person, but yeah, he's awesome. I love everything he does.
One of the things that I really like that you do on TikTok and Instagram is the breakdowns of ingredients of different things. Today I saw the one on Cliff Bars, I believe, which I've I've eaten Cliff Bars before, and I know, you look at the back and yeah, there's a lot of sugar, there's a lot of ingredients. The list is rather long. And for something that's marketed more or less as a healthy food, it's kind of deceiving when you really
Oh,
break it
big
down.
time. Yeah, I don't think Cliff Bars are healthy by any means. And again, if you're looking at just a basic, calories in, calories out, energy expenditure method, yeah, Cliff Bars are an amazing tool. But when you start to look at things a little more holistically and in terms of health, not something you want to be putting in your body at all.
So on the mindset side of things, because this is one of the main goals I have with this podcast, is to look at everything in relation to like how your mindset can help to improve whatever it is you're doing. In this case,
Right.
we're talking a lot about fitness, but it can really apply to anything. If you're invested, if you have the right mindset, then it amplifies your chances of success, to many degrees. So when you started to get into this and decided to put yourself out there, I'm gonna get in front of the camera. I'm gonna talk to people. I'm gonna try and I'm gonna inspire people, and just put myself out there. That's a daunting thing to do, and it takes balls and it takes guts, and it's not easy. And a lot of people can be critical and say, "Oh, this guy is trying to be Instagram famous or whatever," but it's hard to do at the end of the day, and a
It
lot of
is.
people aren't willing to go there. So what is it that inspired you to take that step and say, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to try to make this happen?
Very good question. And again, I have a lot to say in regards to this. In terms of more, like you said, it takes balls in terms of my courage to get online and just, do this for a living, as it were, even with clients. I think it would mostly stem from my musical background, just because I've played shows in front of like 5 people, and I've played shows quite literally in front of 5,000 people. And the shows I played in front of, like big audiences, never really got stage fright, because to me it was just a crowd of people, a sea of people. So you don't see anybody's faces. You're just trying to please as many people as you can. But when you're talking in front of just 1 or 2 people, or playing a show in front of 1 or 2 people, now all of a sudden I noticed, wow, I'm getting a little bit nervous, because those 2 people are watching me. They want to see if I make a mistake, if they enjoy the song, all that sort of stuff. So I guess my courage kind of stemmed from my musical background. But in terms of getting online and just helping people out, I want to get the information out there, because everything from the whole holistic perspective, naturopaths in general, were a relatively new field, which is interesting, because if you go back pre-Westernized medicine, naturopaths were basically everywhere. They never had a name, but if a soldier got shot in a war, they wouldn't use medicines per se to treat this person. They would get certain herbs or certain roots, certain plants that have had anesthesic sort of compounds to them. So by consuming this plant, well, now your symptoms are reduced. And then Westernized medicine came, which is an incredibly powerful tool. I'm happy we have this. Obviously, we're living longer than we ever have, but I feel like we've almost lost our ancestral roots. So I come, on social media to preach about naturopathic views, holistic approaches, because I've seen it work, not just on my clients or family members, but mainly on myself. I was my own test dummy first and foremost.
Well, I think you bring up an incredible point. Yeah, Western medicine is great and we're living longer than ever. But I do get the sense that it's a little bit like 2 steps forward and 1 step back in terms of all of the tools that are at our disposal that, exist within nature, that you don't need to go to the pharmacy to pick up, when you have a headache, grabbing Tylenol off the shelf every time, and, different things. A lot of that gets taken for granted. So it's great. I think there's a kind of movement happening to get a little bit back to nature, a little bit back to more natural healing techniques and methods. It's been a field of interest of mine, and there's vast amounts of information out there on the internet too. It's very overwhelming. So it's cool to talk to somebody like you who's actually studied this and very knowledgeable about it.
Absolutely. Like I said, when it comes to Westernized medicine, I feel like it does have its place. You get, God forbid, someone gets into a car accident and they're suffering from internal bleeding, right? And now they need to get surgery done. go get your surgery. If it's like a matter of life or death, yeah, take the medicine, take the antibiotics by all means. But if it comes to something like a cold, like you said, don't rush for the Tylenol or Advil. For what purpose? To slightly suppress your symptoms? You're still, at least from my experience, I have always felt like garbage. Even when I did take medicine, my symptoms were reduced. I was able, to go to work and manage, but it's not like I was in perfect health. All medicine does is suppress your symptoms while your body takes over to heal itself. And it's funny that we're talking about this too. The reason why I became a naturopath, I guess it's kind of twofold. One is more from observation, and one is from personal experience. I remember, let's start with the observation one. For the last 10 years of my late grandfather's life before he passed away, he was in and out of the hospital. He'd be there for maybe 4 months. The doctors discharge him. Yeah, he's cured. He's fine. He's at home chilling for, a month or two. All of a sudden, he's got to get rushed back into the hospital. And this was happening from the moment I entered high school till maybe my third or fourth semester into college, just nonstop back and forth until he inevitably died. And it was at that moment that I started to realize that obviously the doctors are doing the best they could, and I'm very thankful for our practitioners, but I don't necessarily think they were trying to cure him per se. They were more just trying to buy time for him, which again, thankful, because he could have died 10 years earlier. But I didn't like to accept the fact that it was game over 10 years prior to his death, and now it's just a matter of buying time. When we look at the physical, like what I experienced and how I discovered naturopathy was, this was a time in my life where I was actually attempting to study medicine and become a full-on MD medical doctor. And during this process, I remember I developed this chronic illness. I had no idea what it was. And for the first time I got it, I thought, okay, well, it's just a regular cold. I'm used to the symptoms. So let me just play it out. I'm usually sick for a week. Let's just go, sweat it out. A week goes by and I got progressively more ill. Like, wait, that's not normal. Okay, maybe it's just a 2-week bug. 3 weeks go by, 4 weeks go by, and I got worse and worse and worse until maybe a month had passed and I finally got rid of my illness. Like, wow, that was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I never want to go through that again. Come maybe 6 months later, I get the same illness a second time. Like, no, this can't be. Let me go see my doctor because I can't go through this again. Because we're in Canada, we have free clinics. Everyone has their own opinion on that. I'm personally not a fan because I was waiting close to 10 hours actually in the waiting room just to get a 30-second consultation with my practitioner. He signed, just checked, my eyes, my nose, my ears, told me what it was, signed a piece of paper, and basically kicked me out of the room. 30-second consultation, no exaggeration. I proceeded to go to the pharmacy, buy close to $300 worth of medicine, to which I was still sick the entire month I was taking them. My symptoms were reduced, but I was still sick. Anyway, fast forward to the third time I got my illness, I decided I don't want to wait another 9 to 10 hours. I don't want to spend $300 on medicine. Let me look for alternative cures for what I have. So I started doing research, and as it turns out, you could go to your local drugstore, or for us in Quebec, Jean Coutu, and you could buy something called a neti pot, which is a plastic or ceramic teapot. You put some distilled water inside, one of the salt packets that they give you, and you shove that teapot in your nose just so the water can basically flush out your sinus cavities, which is the illness that I had. And when I tell you that upon doing this, I actually felt better, not like symptoms were reduced. I was cured. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, whoa, how come my doctor didn't mention this? It's like maybe 1/10 of the price, and it actually made me feel better. So I started doing more research, and eventually I ended up discovering what naturopathy was. It's just a matter of prevention, getting yourself so healthy that you don't get sick. Fast forward to, let's say now, it's 2022. I have not been sick or so much as a migraine, headache, or sniffles, anything of the sort, since September of 2020 or August of 2020. So it's been almost a year and a half that I haven't felt any sort of discomfort or illness.
Fantastic, though. Well, that's a great story. And it's amazing how something as simple as the neti pot that you can get literally off the shelf at the pharmacy cured your problem that the doctor was not even able to, or probably not willing, or didn't have the time to examine in more detail in order to give you satisfactory, consultation. But
It's funny you bring that up too, because I think that's the benefit of my line of work. Because I remember reading from one of the doctors that I've been studying from. In one of their books, they mentioned that the average doctor in the United States and Canada gets an approximate 7 minutes with their clients, which makes sense, right? There's a lot of sick people, so you got to get through them as fast as you can. But there's only so much you can learn about your client in 7 minutes. Meanwhile, in my line of work, my clients get a minimum of 45 minutes. I want to talk to them, learn about their eating patterns, learn about how stressful their lives are, learn about their mindset, their sleep cycles. I want as much information as I can so I can better give a detailed plan of nutrition, of fitness training, or just whatever I can to help them promote a healthy way of life so they can eventually get healthy.
sounds fantastic. Do you take vitamins and supplements, or is it strictly the food that goes into your body?
Great question. My number one that I always tell my clients is food first. Because without food, I don't care what you're taking, even if it's the healthiest, natural, most perfectly talked about supplement, it won't work. Nutrition is number one. Nutrition is like 80% of your health. In terms of supplementation, yes, I do. It does change from season to season. For example, one of my staples is vitamin D, for example, specifically vitamin D3. For us in North America, specifically in Canada, we don't see the sun for majority of the year, right? Our winters are like 7, 8 months long. So vitamin D is a very, very, very powerful tool for us. However, when the summertime comes along, I'm outside basically every day, so I don't need as much vitamin D. But there are other staples. I do recommend most people take magnesium because we generally generally tend to be less, more deficient in magnesium. Excuse me. So yeah, there are some supplements I do recommend, but as a general rule, I never push supplements on my client because that's what the word is, right? Supplement. You're just trying to get extra. If you don't need it, why bother taking it?
Great point. We must talk about workouts and exercise.
Yes, sure.
This is a huge part of what you do, after all. And after the past 2 years that we've lived through, gyms have been open and closed, on and off, especially where we live in Quebec. There's been several shutdowns, and it's been harder for some people to access gyms. I've started to build myself some sort of a home gym. And I've gotten into kettlebells because they're compact, they're small, they don't take up a lot of space. Right. And there are a variety of workouts that you can do with them. But how have you dealt with all the consequences of the past 2 years, and how has it affected your workout routine?
Right. Unfortunately for us in Quebec, we're definitely taking this whole world situation the worst, at least from what I've seen, the worst out of any single country, maybe with the exception of Australia now. But if you remember back at the beginning, they were fine. I feel like we're the only country that's been going through this nonstop for 2 years. So we're definitely taking it the worst. In terms of how I manage, very fortunate for myself that I actually have a private gym. So my workouts have virtually never stopped. I didn't notice though, because my clients have been reducing over the months since we've been getting shut down and whatnot, that I've had less of the will to go work out, just because I have no reason to take a 45-minute drive to my private gym just to work out. But yeah, I don't have the right to complain. I've had access for a solid 2 years, so I'm very
That's great for you. Have you noticed it being an issue with some of the clients that you've had though? Are they facing obstacles and things like that, or?
Big time. I've had clients just craving to work out. Some people, it isn't even a matter of health, right? Or physical health, I should say. So for majority of my clients, even though they're relatively overweight and they want to lose the weight, for them it's more of an escape. It's more of a mental release. They just want to show up, leave their kids at home, husband, wife, whatever, and just come have a nice conversation with me, get a workout going, get the endorphins, rushing through their head, just feel good for the rest of the day. And the fact that they haven't had that ability, it's been taking a serious toll on their mental health. They feel overwhelmed with life decisions, not to mention the whole nutrition aspect, because they're not working out. Well, their diet seems to slip a little bit more glasses of wine, more processed foods. So yeah, it's been hitting a lot of my clients pretty hard.
Yeah, those things tend to go hand in hand. When you kind of reduce your time spent at the gym, then the other bad habits start to creep in, I guess. It's easy to kind of start a downhill slide. Once you let go of one good habit, others tend to follow.
Big
Um,
time.
but yeah, no, I find that it's very unfortunate that the gyms uh, were closed for such extended periods of time. And, not to get into this too deeply, but the lack of emphasis on health and like personal health and fitness and nutrition throughout this
Thank you.
pandemic
Yeah.
has been horrifying to watch.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, you have no idea how peeved I am. That's like my biggest pet peeve. It's funny to me that they shut down basically all the small businesses, everything around us, but yet big unhealthy corporations, again, I go to McDonald's because they're number one, that has not stopped. Their profits have not shifted at all during this 2 years. But meanwhile, the gyms that have actually been scientifically proven, and there are many studies done on this to help combat uh, COVID and just other illnesses as well. It baffles me that these corporations are the ones that have been shut down for the longest. Makes no sense to me.
and the mental health aspect of it too. As
Big
you were saying,
time.
I've been working from home for the past 2+ years now, and as many benefits as there are, no, without a doubt, yeah, loneliness is a thing, and you can get down just by being isolated and by yourself all the time,
Of
working
course.
working on a computer, 8 hours plus per day. It's not exactly a natural state for a human being. You want to be around people, you want to get out of your house and go do things and socialize and everything. It's unfortunate that we haven't found more ways to be able to do that throughout all of this. So
That's
here's
right.
hoping that we're turning a corner now and that we'll see a brighter spring and summer ahead of us.
Definitely. As a natural practitioner, as someone who advocates anything natural, like as natural as we can get, as holistic as we can get, meeting people, exchanging our natural bacteria, this is very, very beneficial stuff to us. The fact that I see people who've never really used like Purell or hand sanitizers, but now every like 5 minutes, always, purifying their hands, they're getting rid of that natural bacteria that actually keeps us healthy. I feel like we're really taking a shift for the worse when it comes to metabolic and natural health.
Yeah, and there seems to be no examination of the potential harms of doing that either. I would love to see an honest conversation take place about, the pros and cons of using Purell every time you enter a store or a building,
Right.
uh, especially with all the developing information about the virus and how it's transmitted. And it doesn't live on surfaces for very long, and it's mostly through the air and the little particles. But do we need to really disinfect our hands 18 times a day? I mean, it's good practice to wash for sure, but
For sure.
the chemicals and the things that get sprayed in stores and on the shopping carts, and things that you're undoubtedly picking up without realizing, can, I imagine, be harmful as well.
And the worst offender, stuff that I still see until this day is again, during when this first arose, people started to panic and they weren't sure what was safe or wasn't safe. So people started to wash their produce and foods and everything with dish soap. Let's say you're washing an apple with dish soap. Well,
Mhm.
even if once you rinse off the soap, you're still biting into whatever chemicals from that soap are still on your apple, right? And now you're consuming dish soap. People would never just naturally chug dish soap to clean their insides, but now they're doing that subconsciously. I can't even imagine what's going on with their gut, their microbiome, their digestive system. Oh my God, it makes me so fearful.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, the impact that that kind of, uh, I don't have any other word to describe it, but the fear that's been instilled within people.
Definitely.
That's one of the things that I find to be unfortunate. But I have a strong feeling that better times are ahead of us.
So
And I
do
don't
I.
like to dwell on negativity. I always look to look forward at the positive. Um,
Absolutely.
so before we end this off, is there anything else that you want to uh, say to anybody who's listening, about what you do, or where they can find you or learn more about you?
Yeah, sure. Well, if I had to give some general piece of advice that would be safe for everyone, try making small changes. I know there's so many people who don't come to see me in my office, not because they don't want to, or maybe they're just uninformed, but there are so many people out there who feel like they've lost hope. I don't know what to do. I'm overweight. I don't know what to do. I'm unhealthy. I don't know what to do. I've developed I don't know, some sort of illness, it's not too late. I promise you. Just take the first step and make some small changes. Whether it's just working out, go to the gym. That'll be your first change. Then maybe, you know, get consult a nutritionist, a dietitian, maybe even a naturopath, or someone who's versed in the field to know what foods to start to eliminate, what foods to promote, and start taking the steps to get healthy. You don't have to go 100% with it, as we mentioned prior. Small changes do go a long way. And for anyone who's looking to consult, there are many amazing practitioners just in Quebec. But if anyone wants to reach out to me personally, all my socials are basically at Health Coach Dillon. So you look that up, you'll find me. I'm wearing the red T-shirt. It's kind of my brand logo, black and red, excuse me. And yeah, I try to post as many informative videos or, you know, posts or whatever as I can.
Excellent. Well, I'm a regular consumer of your content. I really enjoy it. It's always small, bite-sized stuff, which is very easy to, you know, just watch 1 minute and then you pick up a quick tip and then carry on with your day. And it's fantastic. So thanks so much, Dillon. I really appreciate you talking with me. We covered a lot of ground, and I would love to have you back on to get deeper into more specific things.
Of course. Anytime you want, you let me know.
An excellent introduction to what you do, and we covered a lot of really valuable stuff. So I appreciate it immensely.
Of course. Thanks again, Rob. Honestly, it was a pleasure. And like I said, anytime you want, by all means. So it's always a pleasure.
For sure. All right. Take care, my friend.
You too. Have a good one. Okay.
You too.